Welcome to Encounter, where we celebrate putting faith into action and community leaders who live out compassion, grace, and love. We're a program of the Broome County Council of Churches that addresses food insecurity through Chow and the Greater Good Grocery, provides hospital and jail ministry, builds wheelchair ramps, and assists neighbors with transportation and shopping services through Faith in Action volunteers. We invite you to the conversation. Encounter your neighbors as we learn to walk together in love and kindness.
Good morning and welcome to Encounter. I'm your host today, Joe Sellepack, the Executive Director at the Broome County Council of Churches. Is faith practiced or is it just a belief? That's a debate that goes on through most of philosophical discussions and theological treatises, but ultimately it comes down to how we practice what we believe. And there are many ways that we practice what we believe, and to help me talk through some of those ways that we practice our faith is Jeff Kellam, who is no stranger to Encounter. Welcome back to Encounter again today, Jeff.
I may be stranger.
You are a stranger.
I may be stranger.
You are a stranger, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, you know, the issue is the issue of faith and belief and practice.
Yeah.
How do those things come together, do you think?
Well, certainly my belief system, whether it's political or it's social or it's theological, I can believe these things personally, but unless they affect the way I live my life, then it's just my little universe.
Yeah.
And I would rather that I was part of something bigger. When it comes to spiritual practices or practice, you know, it's the old story about how do you get to Carnegie Hall. You practice, practice, practice. And I don't want to say how do you get to heaven, but you practice, practice, practice. But I think it is a matter of living out your faith. And of course we do that in our social context with our families or our neighbors or strangers. And then we also do that, of course, within ourselves to build up our spirituality or our religious beliefs. You know, during Lent, we take these spiritual practices, we call them, our spiritual disciplines, and we try to hone them during that 40 days. And then we, kind of like leaving peace on earth behind at Christmas, you know, we kind of think, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to pray. I don't have to go to church. I don't have to.
Yeah, after Easter, it just goes out of.
Yeah, that's right. It's just, you know.
Just out of your mind, right?
The roller coaster got us to Easter, and then.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that low Sunday.
Right,
the Sunday after Easter, which was the Sunday I was often invited to preach, because the ministers would take the time off, and then I would be there the Sunday after. And then the annual report comes out, and you see how the attendance dipped when Jeff Kellam preached. And I always took that very personally, and Joan said, Jeff, that's just the Sunday of the year. It's not you. It's not you.
Right. It's like the Sunday after Christmas, too. I mean, they both are like dead space almost.
Right. Which is fine. Which is funny, because you'd think now that we've built up to this point, let's keep it going.
Yeah, and like explode or something, you know, have it keep going.
Yeah.
So my grandmother, she used to have this little journal and a hymn book. And you could see that the correlation between the hymn book and the journal, because she would read them every morning, read a hymn, and then she would write about it. It was like one of her things that she used to do when she was practicing her faith. It was something that kind of went along with that. And I had the hymn book, and I can see the little marks inside of it and other kinds of things like that, which is really precious to me. But I know that you, through Lent, you kind of do a little bit of the same thing for 40 days. You have a journaling thing that kind of goes on, and then you try to talk about it. What has that meant to you over the years?
Oh, it's meant that instead of giving up something for Lent, I'm taking on something for Lent. And when you take on something, you do have to make room for it. So maybe I'm sacrificing whatever I'm making room for. When the Reverend Pat Robb years ago preached a sermon about taking on something new for Lent rather than giving up something, I thought, I'm going to write during each day in Lent. And I thought, well, what am I going to write about? Do I have a theme? And I thought, well, this time I'll write about 40 people who have influenced my life day by day. Now, I didn't make a list first. I didn't say, oh, let's see, number one, number two, when I got up in the morning, my practice is to light a candle, get my coffee, and sit at the computer. It's a blog, so that means it's public. It's not my personal journal. So I know that other people are reading it. But I started with some of the people who were influenced my faith journey, past and present. Sure, the professors, my parents, but then there were some church people that I wrote about. So that's how it started. And then, Joe, I think I let it go for a couple of years. We may have gone away for a while, so I wasn't around during Lent to write. But then I picked it up, and in fact, I made a list. I'm so glad you asked that question, which I asked you to ask. So in, 2011, 40 I followed. And then I wrote Parish Stories in 2015. My parents always said, you should write about some of these experiences that you have in church. And I said, not till everybody's dead.
Right.
But not everybody was dead. But I wrote Parish Stories. 40 images I wrote about in 2016. That was pictures I had taken that I thought would kind of prompt some sort of writing. In 2017, that was the quirky year I wrote about mugs.
Mugs.
I looked at our cupboard, I thought, my gosh.
Did you do mug shot?
Yeah. Yeah, they were all mug shots. And I looked and I thought, well, there's one from a church, there's 3 or 4 from a radio station, there's one about jazz, there's one that, 3 that my grandson had made. So I could take each mug, and we found 40 mugs.
Wow.
Now, by the time I got to the Saturday before Easter, well, actually, I guess it was on Maundy Thursday of that year, I took a chalice. So it wasn't a mug, but it was a chalice. Wideness and God's Mercy. I had submitted panoramic pictures to the Binghamton newspaper when they were printing a local panoramic shot. Wrote about those. Wrote twice about music for 40 days. Lenten windows, because I went through my photographs and found all these windows I'd taken on various trips and so on. Rooms, paths, place, living and breathing, which were more faith stories. And then this year I wrote about light.
Light, yeah.
General theme, which meant that you could write about TV lights, the on-the-air light, the light in somebody's eyes.
And you wrote this for general consumption for other people too, right? So you put it out there for folks. Because I've read quite a bit. I wouldn't say I've read all of them.
Right.
But I do read quite a few of them every week. And so the one that you're working on for this year was light.
Yeah.
And help flesh that out. So what were some of the ways that kind of influenced your daily reflection?
I think I can either begin with an idea, driving down the street, a traffic light.
Right.
So simple. The instructions are stop, go, and be careful.
Right.
Easy. Well, sometimes that translates into the way we live. You know, you have easy decisions. You're gonna say yes. You're gonna say no. You're gonna say maybe. Then another time, it might be cued in by a picture. I have a wonderful picture, if I do say so myself, I took in Dunedin, Florida, the summer of my youth ministry internship when I was in seminary. So we're talking about decades ago.
Right.
It was a sunset. And so I know the thirds philosophy of photography. You don't center everything. So there's this pier that runs out toward the sunset. The sunset's over here, and there's a sailboat. Just a natural thing. A photographer just boing, you take a picture. When I got the picture back and looked at it, it's these 2 people here, those 2 people there, those 2 people there, and this one single figure out at the end.
Oh, wow.
Well, that prompts writing.
Right,
you know?
right.
What's going through that person's mind? Do they know everybody else is together? Do they know they're apart? Are they in solitude, or are they lonely? And there's a difference. So those are the things that sometimes are the cues. Now, I'm writing for me, and I make that pretty clear, that on this blog, which is called Peace, Grace, and Jazz,
Right.
I make it pretty clear I'm writing for me, but I'm glad to share it with you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a sermon, you know, except it's there. And, you know,
So when you were writing sermons, did you feel like you were writing sermons for yourself or for your congregation, or
I don't.
was there some magical thing that happened between the two?
Unless unless the pastor or the preacher has something of themselves in the sermon,
Right.
then it's just it's a literary exercise.
Right. Right.
That doesn't mean you talk about yourself. You know, I remember being in one church where we were looking for a pastor, and this pastor came and made himself the hero of the story.
Right. Right.
Turned me off right away. But I think to let something of yourself in your story as you share it. Now, we're talking about pastors here, and you know the folks who are watching this
I know.
are not necessarily pastors.
No, they're not.
So what does that mean to the viewer or the listener? Let's talk first about writing.
Right.
You know, it's a good thing to write. I like to write with a piece of that old school lined paper and a pencil or a pen in hand. I don't anymore. I like to, but you know, I'm an old man.
Right.
So what do you mean write?
Well, I'm just making an observation, Jeff. I'm agreeing with you, man.
Okay, so you know there's something personal about that. It's the instrument you choose. It's the paper you choose. It's how you get a print, you get a write. On the computer, we're tapping. You know,
Right.
I use the Christopher Columbus method. To discover a key and land on it. So when I'm typing, I'm always correcting as I go. But so as I write, I'm thinking of what's the sentence structure going to look like. I do care about that,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
I have to say that this idea of writing day by day, it's rooted in an old tradition of diaries, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I've seen farmers' diaries in Vermont that were nothing more than, I got up at this time, we ate this for breakfast, I milked the cows, I went back and did, and the weather was this, then I went to bed at that.
Yeah.
Well, it's their journal of what their day was like day by day. And it's fascinating to read for a while, but after a while it gets, you know.
Redundant, but then all of a sudden you see the disruption.
Yes, right. And then there's something happens.
Something happened.
My tractor broke down and my neighbor came over and loaned me his tractor. I mean, that's a significant thing.
Yeah.
Then you look at a child's diary and, you know, they come with a little lock and key. 'Cause
Right.
The child wants to keep that secret. And those of us who write in a diary might reflect a little bit. But there's a jump then from the diary to the journal. And the journal is more of a, well, I use this, Ira Progoff went to this Ira Progoff thing called the Intensive Journal Workshop. And this was, I mean, this is 50 years ago that this book was published. But he's saying psychologically, if you want to learn about yourself, you write every day. Write about your dreams. Write about the troubling headline. How do you feel about it? Write about how you crave reconciliation with your sister.
With your sister, yeah.
And so there are sections in this journal where you write about a different thing as you're moved each day. You don't have to fill out every piece every day.
Right.
Choose the one that's touching to you in that moment. And then the secret is that you go back years later and read about yourself. You know, how have you changed your mind?
Yeah.
If you write about a current ethical issue that's in your church or in the news, maybe you were here, but then you find that 10 years later you're there, and
Right.
you learn something about yourself.
You know, I had that same thing. I had that happen to me once, where I was in the middle of a move, as pastors frequently do. I mean, we end up moving quite frequently, and there was one where I was going through some old files from when I was in first year in college. And so I was pulling some of those things out and looking at them and tossing some and looking at others things. And there was one that I took that was a leadership class that I was supposed to envision where I was going to be in 5 years. And here I am, 10 years later, looking back on this person who was thinking about where he was going to be in 5 years. And I'm like reading through exactly what I was thinking, and I'm going, who was that guy? And really, I mean, what was so interesting about it is that I had done like a 360-degree turn in my 180 really, because 360 would be a full circle, 180 would be half of a circle, right? So I'm going the opposite direction, and I'm thinking to myself, I recognized the person, but I did not fully believe in the same things that that person believed at that point in his life. And it's interesting to me that happens. So what kind of growth have you been in the last 15 years, thinking through that? I mean, if you look back at some of the old you and all the old things, like what kind of journey have you been on with that?
I think probably in terms of let's start with my personal life. You know, going from being a parent to a grandparent, and then in October I became a great-grandparent.
Great-grandparent, yeah.
And so you watch time go by, and I look back at my retirement, which was a long time ago. I mean, I can't believe that I've been retired that long, but frankly, I never looked back. You know, when people retire, I hope you're retired because you're called to something, not from something. So when I look at what's happened personally to me, I see not just aging, but I see all these different family dynamics and changes, and I celebrate them. You know, I was glad to go to my grandson's lacrosse games in very early April or whenever it was. You'd sit there and freeze to death. I thought, you know, why am I here? This is not my child. This is my grandchild. And then when the kids go off to college, you think, I really miss that now.
I do.
I really miss that. Spiritually, I don't know. That's a roller coaster for me. You know, when I was in college, somebody came to our spiritual emphasis week and said, and admitted the speaker was there every day preaching the gospel and to the full chapel because it was required at the time that we go. And in a discussion group afterward, he admitted he didn't read the Bible every day. I'm a pre-ministerial student, you know, and you don't read the Bible every day. How can that be? Well, I don't read the Bible every day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you've used it as a textbook for your writing sermons all the time, retire and you think, I'm going to read a novel, darn it. And I'm not going to read a novel so that I have to find an illustration for a sermon. Darn it, I'm going to read the novel to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, so I went through that phase, and now it's reading the Psalms.
Yeah.
Wow, just the song book, the prayer book of the Bible in the very middle of the book. Now I find meaning in that. So
my guest today is Jeff Kellam. We've been talking about how writing has really influenced his spiritual life and his life in general. And writing is one spiritual practice, and so it's one of those things that I find very valuable for myself too. You know, I was thinking as you were talking about the Psalms recently, Paul Simon just recently released a new album.
Yeah.
Have you listened to it?
Yeah, I have it. Yes.
Yeah, which is a reflection on the Psalms, really. And he's going on tour this summer, and he's going to be singing about it. But you have that and the Psalms, and then the music. That kind of go together. And when I think of you, Jeff, I think of those two things. I think of the the writing that you've done, but I also think that jazz is really important too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably influenced your spiritual life probably far more than even your writing, right?
Probably because of the my relationship to the Presbyterian jazz group with Bill
Right.
Carter, who writes music that expresses the spirituality of life. He's writing it in a jazz idiom. But I also, you know, the days when I was doing my radio show, Celebration Rock, I did that show for 20 years. And at first it was just playing rock music so kids would listen. And then I started listening to lyrics. And the difference between much of the jazz that I enjoy and the rock that I played is that the rock had lyrics that told stories.
Right.
Not just love lost, but I think of Rush. It had a song called Subdivisions.
Yeah.
And I heard an interview with Billy Idol on NPR a couple of weeks ago, talking about, you know, now that he's clean, he realizes that life has focus. And he said, I have 2 kids that I know about because of his rough days on the road. And he's got 2 children that he cares about, and now he's got grandchildren. And he's thinking, you know, this is my, and Billy Idol, of course, isn't his real name. So,
Right, right.
And the interviewer referred to it as his stage name. You realize that these people who are making this music, especially these days in rock music, are not using real names. They're using one name that they chose that, you know.
May or may not reflect on even the original name that they came with,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Lady Gaga, you know, from years
right.
ago.
Yeah.
You know, Frank Sinatra was
Bad Bunny.
Francis Albert Sinatra, you know.
Bad Bunny can't be his real name.
Bad Bunny. That's right. Can you imagine the baptism service?
I know,
baptize
I know.
you in the name of the Lord, and Bad Bunny. No, but so they take on these stage names, and we think that's the person, and we don't realize there's a person behind the person.
Right, right.
And that's something that people in the pew need to know, is that pastor up there is a real person. And if they're playing a role, it's hard to follow somebody playing a role. Jesus was about as much himself around people as he could be. And so he took the criticism from the religious authorities and the higher-ups. He took the criticism from those who listened and didn't get it. But there was his genuine self as he taught. He didn't write anything. You know, he kind of doodled on the ground in that one section of the gospel, but so what we have are the writings, the journals,
Right.
of the gospel writers, whoever they may have been. So.
And that's an important thing for people to realize too, is that so we've been talking a lot about journaling and music and other kinds of things, but you know, traditionally when we talk about practicing our faith, people are thinking prayer, Bible study, you know, and other kinds of things like
Right.
that. But what we've been really concentrating on through you is what moves Jeff Kellam, and how does Jeff Kellam kind of, what makes you tick? I think it's important for people to realize that it's not about just artificial practice. It's about expressing who you are and your life into your faith, isn't it?
Yeah. We started out with what does practicing what you believe mean? That practice of writing for me, and you know, I let it go after Lent. I don't write every single day because I don't have time.
Right.
You know, there are other things I have to be doing. But during Lent, I do set aside that time to do it. And so the writing that comes later is when you're prompted. Something happens and you feel like you have to say something. For some of us, it used to be letters.
Yeah, yeah.
We used to write letters to people.
And that used to be a weekly practice.
Yeah, and now we pick up the phone and, you know,
or text or whatever.
And we don't even use words when we text. We use emojis.
Right.
So we're not looking for the word,
Thumb
the
up.
perfect word anymore. Yeah, that's right.
I remember the first time I got a thumb up, I'm going, oh, come on. Use your words.
Exactly. So, you know, we're speaking and doing in shorthand when really I think the spiritual life says do some things in longhand. That means take some time It means take some energy, it takes some thought, it takes just sitting for a little while and thinking, for me, when I was during Lent, what am I going to write about today? So I had to think, and then I had to draw from that first idea out to shape the words.
So I'm going to give you a prompt for next year.
Okay.
Taste and see.
Okay. Oh my. Yeah.
Do it on meals.
Wow. Yes.
Meals that have been memorable. Meals that have impacted your life.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about. I was thinking about doing something similar with myself.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's one of those areas where I've noticed that you kind of haven't gone to.
Yeah, and you're the person who cooks outside all the time, and you have recipes for things, and so we should do this together. Publish a book, get rich, go on a speaking tour.
Go on a speaking tour.
Yeah, this 5:30 Sunday morning thing. We could go on Colbert. Well, no, we can't do that anymore. So.
Oh, there. Yeah, I know.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting.
I like that idea.
It's interesting to me that that like when I'm reflecting on my own life and my own passions, that food tends to be one of those places where it comes out. Hospitality is a part of that as well, and hospitality is a spiritual discipline. It's something that we all celebrate in.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not one that gets the play, right? So,
right.
Like in our final minute, like what are some, like if our listener is trying to think about what those things are that they should be concentrating on, like what would move them, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the easy things, like what is the greatest joy that you had today?
Yeah.
If you're going to write toward the end of the day or pray at the end of the day, what is the great joy that struck? Now, maybe there wasn't a great joy, maybe there's a little joy, some little thing to be thankful for, but to look at the things for which you're grateful, and to give thanks for those. And then what was the biggest challenge? And did you approach the challenge helpfully, or did you feel defeated? Don't be afraid to express your feelings. A journal can be very, very private. No one's going to see that journal ordinarily until after you're dead, and then who cares?
Or unless you decide to share it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
like
right.
you do.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're always up against that whole thing about how much of myself do I want to let out there, and how much of it do I want to keep secret.
Yes, and we are allowed to keep some things personal and private. Yes.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Jeff, it's been amazing talking with you again. I need you to know too how grateful I am that you are a host on Encounter. You've been doing this for a long time. And we could actually go back now and talk about our 10 years together. For all of you, I pray that you would all have a great Sunday. Be good and gentle and kind to each other. Have a great day.